Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Just wanted to give you a quick intro to this video. We're going to be talking about some real things, real topics, real things that we face, okay, every day, or you have faced it before. I hope that it will just give you things to think about, consider, and just remember, all things is not for everyone. So with that, let's move forward. Let's just enjoy this video together, and God bless. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not only my spiritual walk, which is the most important thing, because living this life, it's temporary. We're here for a while, and we're here in our earth suit, living our everyday lives, doing the things that we do. But there is another place where our spirit will reside eternally. And so not only does it apply to the natural, not only does it apply to the spiritual aspects of things, which is the most important thing, because only what we do for Christ is going to last, and only the things, the things that really, how do I say this? The deeper things, our purpose, the things that God has laid for us to do, that are steps that's been ordained by God. And if we choose to follow those steps, that's what's going to last. That's what's going to matter when we stand before Him, on that final day and when we leave this earth. A lot of times people think when you die, that's just going to be it. No, it's not. I am a living witness that that's not the end of it. And in a sense, not because I've died before, but because I've experienced so much of the supernatural in a tangible way that I realize we're not in this world alone. And there are various testimonies and people that's not even testifying, people who they're not necessarily Christians, but they died. They died on the operating room table, and they spoke of going somewhere else. And then you have the believers who went somewhere else, and they come back and they talk about that. And the Bible talks about those things. But I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So not only the spiritual aspect, but also the natural. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 3:5, it says to trust in the Lord with all your heart, to lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. Not just the things about God and tied to Him, but your everyday life and dealings. And so we're going to talk about the disciplines of single men and single women. We're going to talk about that. And I would say these days it's very hard. I spoke about men. I've spoken about women too. You just got to find the videos. But I've spoken about men who, it just seems nowadays they're so different. It's like they want to be protected. They want to be provided for. They want to take the role of woman while being man at the same time. And this is not all. And then you find those who are successful and they're doing things, but they're so into themselves that they begin to look at the woman as less than, or what can you do for me? Are you on my level? And you have to realize that sometimes who God is going to provide for you is not necessarily on your level in terms of education and certain things, but she is on your level spiritually. And while it is good for her to achieve some things and to do that, God can bring to you who He chooses to bring to you. Let's talk about Boaz. Boaz owned some things, but here was Ruth, who had so many things that's going on in her life that now she had resorted to picking up grains in the fields, doing whatever she can to make things work. There's a famine in her land. There was all types of things going on. And yet here's Boaz, who was going to cross her path, and he was going to change her life. And I believe she brought forth Jesse, who is David's father. I could be wrong. I can't remember, but I know she's associated with David. All right. So I'm not saying that a woman shouldn't try to do her best, but sometimes the standard that maybe a man who's doing well in his life, he's saying, okay, I want this type of woman, and he's wealthy and he's doing well, but sometimes he's not using wisdom in his choices, okay? But what he believes will be right for him, what makes sense to him. 1 + 1 is 2 to him, right? And then, of course, you have the one that's lazy, not doing anything for himself, and wanting to be protected, and he's just not in the right position. You also have women that's out there in the streets doing whatever she feels like doing. She's following and reading the Cosmopolitan magazine and reading all the different magazines. She's reading Essence. She's reading all these different things. She's reading books. She's listening to her friends. She's her own little counselor and whoever around her who's probably on that same level. And they're all following what life in the world says. This is how you get a man. This is how you keep a man. This is the type of man you're supposed to deal with. And she may also be choosing a man. Some they want a sugar daddy. Some they want somebody that's going to take care of them, and they have zero qualities, zero character. And you have some who have done very well in their lives. They're doing well. The money's coming in, but her mindset becomes shallow. It really does, because now she's looking for a certain man. Well, if you're not making this amount of money, and if you are not doing this and that, then you can't be with me. So she's looking at a man who looks good on the books, but his character might be lacking. Or they're both together on the same level, but they're both just doing the narcissist dance together. They're both self-entitled and become the power couple that looks down on other people and stomps other people out. Or there's really no love. They just match. Okay, your money and my money gives us all more money and more opportunities, and that could be what it's all about. And so whether you're a Christian or not, a lot of this mindset, this behavior takes place, and people are wondering, well, why are their relationships not lasting, or why people are staying together but they're miserable. Don't get it twisted. Just because people are still together in relationships does not mean that they're happy. There are lots of miserable people living together. They just think it's just too much money to try to separate. They stay together for the children. They're like, okay, we're going to stay together until they get older. They may stay together until the house is paid off or something like that. Then they'll sell it and split the profits or make some sort of agreement. There are lots of people who are very miserable. They're not sleeping together anymore. And if they do, it's just something, they had a lot of drinks, it was raining, and then, they happen to reach for the door handle at the same time and the magic rekindled. But normally that's not what, they're not feeling that way. Then they end up having a baby, on the fly, and then it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? But there are lots of people who are miserable. There are lots of people who have these fantastic weddings. You can read about it. You may know somebody, and the marriage ends. Because to me, I'm never impressed with a marriage. That's the good part. That's the easy part. Now let's see you really do marriage. And there are lots of people. I remember working somewhere, and I worked in this clinic, and this lady, she'd been married for 20 something years, and her husband was in the military. He was like well up in there, in the rank and everything. And this man cheated on his wife for like somebody who was way younger than her. I mean, his wife took it well, I guess. I mean, I don't know if she was just fronting, but this was an older woman. And I remember she had been married for like 27, 28 years to this man. Probably, I think she was married for longer than that. And he cheated on her just like that. He just wanted somebody who was younger. And the lady was like, oh, well, it is what it is, just pay me my alimony or whatever she said. And it's, she was just like, whatever. And I felt like maybe he had just been doing this for so long that she just got numb, or she was putting up a front for us. Maybe she cried alone. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. People get married, but they don't necessarily stay together. And so what does this thing have to do with I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me? Well, I think for one, a lot of believers, let's talk about the, people that's not saved, they're just going to live how they're going to live, do what they want to do. But sometimes they come out better than even people who are Christians, because there's a lot of people who are unsaved that stay together. But nevertheless, more so often than not, they're hot mess too. And what is kind of shocking is seeing that there are people who say that they're Christians, Christian singles, or even Christian couples, and they are doing everything just like how unsaved people will do it. And I think one of the reasons why that happens is because they think like Jesus or God may be for emergency purposes only, serious situations, if I'm in the hospital, if this is going on. But they tend to exclude God. They may pray for a mate. They may pray for a husband or a wife. They desire that. They pray for things in a superficial sense. But if they pray for a home, they don't get in detail like, Lord, this is something I would like that, I can take care of, and I can keep it in the family for a while. I want it to be affordable. They don't get on into that. It's just like, I want a house. And the same thing with a husband. So they want God to give them that stuff, but then they want to take the wheel and do all and custom and tailor things the way they want it. Well, the Lord tells us to abstain. But in this day and age, it seems like, oh, abstaining is just a thing of the past. Oh, sure, you can sleep together, you can date, you can Netflix and chill, you can do the stuff, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can spend the night, you can spend the weekend, you can go on cruises and sleep in the same bed and do all these things because what Christians will say is we are going to get married and put the spin on it. But the Lord tells us to abstain for a reason. The Word of God also talks to us about watching the fruit. You need to look at the fruit. If you read the book of Proverbs, that's everything in there that you need to be reading about how to deal with people and even applying that to relationships. It tells you to avoid the lazy person. It tells you to avoid the angry person. It tells you to watch the person that says one thing and does another thing. It tells you to not be drawn to the strange woman who flatters with her lips, who's dressed like a harlot, who's trying to seduce you. It's all in there. It tells you to leave the man who's left the righteous path to follow the crooked path. There's just so many things in there. I mean, everything is in the Bible to include, what to do when you're on your period and why you shouldn't spill your seed on the ground. That means sperm, man. For those of you that may not understand, there's everything up in there. Everything is up in there. It's just a matter of if we want to listen. So we end up having a lot of heartbreak and pain and have this collection of bodies, people that, we've dated and how many times you've kissed. It's like, how many different people have you kissed? You have to sit down and just do a list of who you can remember. Some people you can't remember. You got to just put that girl, that guy. And so when you do that, guys, you have to realize you are creating soul ties with these individuals. And that's why sometimes women, you can get older because your pH balance is just all mixed up. It's just all pixeled. Okay. And sometimes you're not sleeping with someone else, but if you're with the wrong kind of guy, a guy who's out there doing things, he's bringing you all that mess. And some people say, well, we use protection. The woman is all in his pores. She sweated on him. There's some parts of your body that the condom is not going to cover. The pubic hair, the pubic bones, testes and all of that. Where's the testes at in the middle of intercourse with a woman, depending on what they're doing? It's all up on her. It's touching the intimate parts of her body. They're sweating, their fluids. It's soaking in. It's just sopping up stuff like biscuits, sopping up some soup. So he can bring that to you. And then of course you have the woman who's a receiver, man. So she could have some issues. You get started and just mushrooms and gunpowder everywhere. You're wondering what's going on, who cut the lights out, what happened, where are we, who let out the rats, why? Because sometimes that woman is busy doing different things. It creates soul ties, it creates confusion. A lot of times people can't figure out why they can't connect with people. Well, you can't connect with people because you're in pieces. A part of you is here, a part of you is with this girl, a part of you, you're in Paris, a part of you is in Chicago that night, a part of you is when you went to Las Vegas that time. And you may feel like, that was then and it's done with, but you think about it. Sexual intercourse is kind of like eating. All right. So what did I eat earlier today? Let me tell y'all the healthy thing. I had some grapes today, right? Yeah. So I had some grapes. Oh, and I also had some bibimbap. It's like the Korean sushi rolls. I had that, right? But I ate that a while ago. But long after I've chewed it up, let's imagine the chewing up being the intimacy, and I've swallowed my food, that will be, you guys are done. I'm walking around, I'm doing this stuff, I'm making a video, but that food is still digesting in me. And my body is taking whatever nutrients and stuff that it needs from what I've eaten today and putting it in different places where it needs to go to keep me going. Okay? That stuff is going to go right through me eventually, but the food itself there's things that's been extracted from it that's going to be in my system. And so that's what it is when you're sleeping with different people. And so when it comes time for you to be in a relationship with someone, you have so many points of references, it's hard for you to really commit. There's so many people, you have this Rolodex in your mind of everyone that you've been with, that you can compare this person to someone. The way they do things, they're not as funny, they're not as this, they're not as that. And then if you're having intercourse with them, oh, they're not as exciting. They don't do like this person, they don't do like that person. When truly what it is, you're like a window with a bunch of fingerprints all over it. You're not clean. And so when it comes to dating and relationships and who to be with, we should not just use our earthly accomplishments and our social status to be like, well, this is who I should be with, but really trusting God to make those decisions and choices for you. A lot of times people don't want to follow the word of God because, number one, it tells you to abstain. There's so many different things. It talks about the order of the family, which in today's society, people may say, oh, it's too old school, it's patriarchal, the woman is the lesser than. But the Bible's not teaching about the man to abuse the woman. You know, if you read the Bible page by page, you will see that the Bible is not about abusing women. People may have done some things that were wrong, but that was not God's doing. When God created Adam and Eve, he says, you are one flesh. He spoke to them in the beginning chapters. I want to say it's in the second chapter of Genesis, where it tells them that what they are supposed to do together. Okay, they're supposed to have dominion and authority, but the man is stronger. There's certain things that I don't mind being protected. I don't mind having someone who is the head. Okay? But people, sometimes women are in this thing, they're trying to be, Thundercats and stuff, doing all this stuff, and they think that it's wrong, and it's an insult. But that's because of another conditioning that's taking place. So you can see men as the enemy, and you can see men as whatever. But if someone's beating you half to death, if a man was whooping on a woman and beating you down to the ground, you would want that man to come and help you. I mean, maybe some of you are like a hero all the way to the end, but you'd want that. But there's a purpose of the right man being in your life. There's a beauty to it. There's something good about his strength, and he thinks differently from you. He can see things a little differently. They're not as emotional. While they may have emotions, but they reason and they think differently. And there's a beauty to us as women. We have something that we can give to them as well. There's a reason why we're soft. Our voice is the way it is. We have different pitches. We have a certain way of being. We have intuition. We can see things. So the two come together. Okay? God knows what he's doing. But if you have society and you have a group of people that's kicking against the pricks, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. They're choosing and they're picking, but you notice they're just going through. This person. It's like, next. And then after a while, I'm tired of this. Let me try some women. I'm going to do some girl on girl action, or I'm going to do some boy on boy action, because these girls are crazy. And this man, I'm trying to be with another woman, and they doing all that. And we need to go buy that other thing so that we can really get down. And so it's kind of interesting, right? Because even in terms of people who are going to be together, two women are together, they will still go out and they're going to buy a dildo. So you want to be with another woman, but yet you're still buying this artificial thing that's a man to pleasure one another. Okay. And then you have, two men get together and they're like, we're going to get together. But you notice that they're not going to be the sword fighting. Okay, they can do that, but that's not going to bring them the actual pleasure that they need. So therefore, they have to find the opening to do whatever it is that they want to do. So these are just the things that sometimes puzzles me with it. Because at the end of the day, even if you are looking for someone that is of the same sex, to be gratified, you have to kind of simulate what you would have been doing with someone of the opposite sex. Okay? But that's as far as I'm going to go with that. So then people go to same sex and they're trying it out, and that's not working out either. So they go next, 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 and then they may come back, or they may do both. But the bottom line that I'm saying is, God's ways can seem a bit prudish. It can seem boring. It can seem very, it's too tight. It's just not fun. But a lot of times why it's not fun for us and why it may seem that way is because we've been conditioned to doing things a different way. You know, a child who's pure and has not been introduced to certain things, like a little boy, he's not been introduced to a bunch of sexual things. So he doesn't have this urge. He's not missing anything. There's nothing to miss. He don't know what this is yet. A young girl, unless she's been exposed to certain things, she's not eager to run the street. She's not eager to be sexually penetrated. She doesn't know what it is. But what happens with adults is that in this world, through television and media and the experiences and doing all things like that, you begin, you're so impressionable that the ways of God will seem boring. Like if you've gone, like I've gone out and I've had my drinks and you experience, I was having fun. Let's put it like this. Before I was going out to the club and having drinks with my friends, I was still able to have fun with my friends without alcohol. We didn't have it. So we did have fun. If you think about maybe things that you did when you were younger, it depends on how you grew up. But before you got that first intro to alcohol or whatever it is, you still found ways to entertain yourself or whatever you were doing, or being with your friends and hanging out and just laughing at people and pointing at people. Now, once you get alcohol introduced to you, oh wow, well I've had a taste of this, so now this becomes the norm. I want to go out with my friends, I want to be in the club, I want to go to this, I want to go to a step show. It's because once you've been exposed to something, you have to realize what goes into our eye gates, ear gates, what we put in our mouth. It's like we have this, this hard drive in us. And so we've downloaded that in our bodies, and that becomes the norm. So then when you're reading in the Bible and it tells you to abstain from sex, you can't imagine it because you've been doing it. You can't imagine just really being able to sit down and enjoy yourself and be around your friends and be around your family without being, a little tipsy or having some alcohol, because that's been introduced to you. You know what I mean? So the ways of God, while it may seem boring, it's because we've already had some things downloaded in us. And it just, the idea of following this wholesome path sounds very corny. And then you're thinking people are not going to want to be with me if I think like this. No guy's going to want to date me if I'm saying I'm not sexually active, I want to wait for marriage. You could be laughed to scorn because that's just not the norm anymore. Because now people are going, what? Why get married when you can live together? Or you can live together, see how things go. So basically you're doing this test run. You're doing this test run, but in the meantime, people are using up your valuables. You're giving your all. You're cooking. You may be cleaning. You may be doing things together. You're giving your body, and this is a test run. The person decides they don't want to be with you, or they find someone better, or you realize that their mindset and the way of being is different, you still would have wasted time. That man's not going to have any problems leaving you. That woman's not going to have any problems leaving you because she's used you, she's tasted and seen, and she's ready to try something different. So we can do all things through Christ. So the things that you've been programmed or the things that you've been used to, it can be changed. Your approach to dating, your approach to love has to change. Sometimes people have this storybook fantasy in their head of how things should be, or they've been watching so many things on television, they think this is normal. Now, a lot of times you look on Netflix, they have all these TV shows, they have K-dramas, all this stuff. And one of the things that you'll see is very common in these shows is that the guy is being indifferent to the girl and she's chasing him down and all of this. And there'll be this guy that really likes her and cares about her, but no, she wants the jerk. And so it goes, he keeps treating her badly, and then eventually maybe he'll choke her or slam her against the wall or treat her bad throughout the show the entire time, and then he comes around. But people have to realize that is scripted. It's the same thing, okay? Guy has a wonderful girl, things are going well, but then he meets someone else and they they fall in love and they fight against the odds and they live happily ever after. But the common theme is there's always someone there who loves them already. But they are looking for the bad guy. They want to chase the girl who's giving them the hardest time versus loving the one who loves them already. And so if you're watching these things, that you may think this is your norm. So when someone nice comes around because they don't look like the guy in the movies, or they are too nice, you won't like them. So God comes in to show you the reality of life and people. And when he does, the first thing he's going to do is show you who you are on the inside. Before you can be in any position to be in a relationship with anyone, the first thing God wants to introduce you to before he introduces you to a spouse is yourself. And this is normally hard for people. People don't like to look within themselves. If we do, we want to think about what's good about us. But very often we don't want to think about what's bad, what still needs improvement, and God will show you those things. And when you're willing to let him do that, when he's going to take you down the path to your childhood and things that happen in your life, what made you become who you are today? Why do you have the attitudes that you do? You used to smile a lot. Why don't you smile anymore? He will explore those things with you. Why do you do this? He may even talk to you and show you things about why do you talk this way when you get around certain people? Why do you feel the need that you have to be the life of the party? Why do you think you always need to be the one talking and keeping things going instead of just, why are you not comfortable just being in a room and if no one is talking, apart from you giving your greetings of hello, why are you not comfortable just sitting there? Why do you think that you need to keep the energy going? He'll show you that. Or why do you shut down? Why are you this way? He has to explore all those, help you to explore yourself and give you the answers and show you those things about you. Then he's going to take you to the waters. And now he's going to dip you and make you clean. Because now you know you're dirty. You're able to see the things on you. You know, it's just like that king that went to Eli, I believed. And Eli, he had some sort of skin issue. And he was offended that Eli didn't come out to him. Eli just told his servant, tell him to go dip 3 times in this river. I think it was the Jordan River. And he was offended because of who he is. He's feeling like, you didn't come out to greet me. You sent your servant out here. You didn't greet me, and you're telling me to go dip in this filthy water. And he was getting really upset about that. And sometimes that's the problem with us, because you're thinking of God as your equal, whether you think of that or not. You think of the things that you've accomplished in this world and who you are, and to God, that's garbage. That means nothing to him. You owe nothing. You are nothing but a soul. It goes back to Revelation chapter 3, where he says to them, I think it's Revelation 3 and you get down to verse 11, I think. But he says to them, you think because you're rich and you have need of nothing. And so you think you're good, but you don't know that you are poor and wretched, miserable, blind, naked. So we have nothing to offer God. But sometimes when he's trying to show you who you are on the inside, you resist it because you're thinking about your masters and your doctorates and your associates and your affiliates and what fraternities and sororities you're in and what circles you're running in and what governors you're taking pictures with and what neighborhood you're in and your zip code and the type of phone you have and the card you have. And that's just straight garbage to God. He doesn't need those things. You have these things that are going to pass away. And so you can resist what God has shown you. You can resist the path that he's trying to show you. This is how you're going to heal. This is how you're going to get better. Excuse me, apologize. Excuse me, look at myself. Excuse me, consider my part in this. Oh, no. I'm not going to apologize to no person riding the bus. I have cars. What? The bus person? Nah. Come on, God. You talking to that person behind me, right? But that's not what it is. Anywho, so the king, after his servant really talks to him and say, hey, this guy is the real deal. He's the man of God. Please, just do what he tells you to do. So he goes, he humbles himself, he dips in the river, and he is made whole. Okay, he's so overwhelmed that he wants to just give all these gifts to Eli. And Eli's like, no, thank you, I'm fine. Okay, so that one is another interesting event that occurred. You have to read it to get the ending. But the hardest thing for us sometimes will be to examine ourselves. And why examine myself when you're in a world where you can just go out and be someone else? You can look different, you can filter yourself online, you can pretend to be something through all these little dating apps. You can put on whatever and go in the club with the music and the lights and the drinks and your girls and having fun. You can just be whoever you want to be, if just but for a night. So people will often reject God for that because they don't want to do that self-examination. And when you do that self-examination, it's going to show you things. You're going to cry, you're going to boo-hoo, you're going to get mad. You're going to be like, Lord, are you my friend? I mean, who is this about? What did I do though? And he's going to show you this stuff, right? But when you go through this journey and you're willing to say, create in me a clean heart, O God, according to Psalm 51:10. Renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not from your presence. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Only against you have I sinned and done this horrible thing. I'm not who I think I am. I got the degrees. I have the cars. I have this. But this hidden thing within me, you have exposed it. I don't like it, but it's true. And when you come to terms with that, now God can take you through the process, cleansing you, bring you to the water, rinse you off. Now he can take the blinders off your eyes so you don't see yourself in the world and do things according to the world. He take the stoppers out of your ears so now that you have ears to hear. Because right now there's a lot of people who have ears and they're hearing, but they're not hearing. He begins to change your mind and your heart. And what does that do? And he begins to pour his spirit within you. And not only that, guys, you have to have the wisdom of God, the knowledge of God, the understanding of God, the discretion of God, which is a beautiful thing. It will save you a lot of heartache and pain. You can discern who is before you. Regardless of what someone says, you would have seen them coming a mile away, even in a dream or a vision. I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me, and I ignored it. Then I learned not to ignore it. The beautiful thing about when you allow God to lead you in this life, it will save you so much heartache and pain. You begin to see people as souls and not as objects for your own pleasure. Not people to be dismissed and hurt. He'll let you think about the people that you've hurt in the past and the way you went about it. He may even have you call them and apologize. And some people, hey, you can't touch that anymore. They're too hurt. But you may be able to kneel before him and repent of your sins and the ways that you have done things. And he'll examine and go through with you why you treated people that way, why you did this. Why is it that you see, people walk around in their life and they'll say there are no good men in the world, but truly we've met good men in the world. But sometimes you didn't like him. You didn't like him for whatever reason. You may have broken his heart because your eyes was fixed on what was superficial or what the world said is cuter and better. Oh, there's no good women. Yes, there were. You broke their heart. You hurt them. You left her. You left her behind. You left her for someone else. All men are dogs. Nope, you dated dogs based on you being the ultimate bone. You had some doggy treats in you. Something through your ways and your character. You drew the mangy dogs, the men you called dogs. The men we have called dogs. No, we chose them. Men was like, oh, all women, they're like this, they're like that, and they're gold diggers, and then this and that. No, you chose a certain type of woman. Based on your character, based on your shallowness, based on your narcissism, you chose her because of how she looked, because of her big buttery buns, her big buttery booties, and her succulent toes. You've been sucking on, all of that. Those of you got the foot fetish. She looked like your fantasy girl because you're shallow. So then you get a girl that kind of recognize what your type of guy, what these type of men are about. So she's not going to give her heart to you because a lot of times these women, yeah, maybe once upon a time they wanted love, but they don't want it anymore. They've just said that's not for me, so they shield themselves. So you can't say all women. All women? No, not all women. All the ones you chose, which was probably a specific kind, while you overlooked other people. I saw a clip of someone And he was talking about, oh, how women smell bad and why y'all all smell and why. And I thought it was so crass. This man, he's not a Christian, but he was talking. I saw him on his panel and he was talking about something. And I was just like, wow, this is so rude. He has a daughter. And he's saying these things. He's talking about, oh, women this. And he's talking to women on a panel and he's speaking to them. And I thought it was so rude and so crass and so shallow of him that he thought he could speak to women like this, that all women are this way. And all I thought to myself was like, no, sir. The women that you have to look at yourself. Why is it that the women you are messing with, why do they stink? And he's talking about how beautiful they were, but they had these issues. And I'm like, 9 times out of 10, probably this individual, because of who he is and his status, being a celebrity and all these girls probably running around and running through everybody. Everybody's running through them. If you find yourself being around women who have feminine odors and issues to the point that you're thinking all women are this way, then you have to look at where are you going? Who are you dealing with? Who are you picking? Because certainly not all women are this way. So the issue is not women, because there are billions of women on this planet. So this person cannot say that. But what we can question here is, what grade of women are you dealing with that it is of such that you keep coming up with this idea that all women are this way? What circle are you running in? What kind of women are you picking? What circle do they run in? It all boils down to your character, who you are, who he is, not women. I can tell you hands down, not every woman is smelling like fish. Okay? Starting from home, I would tell you, I've never once in my life ever smelled my mama. Never. I've never walked in a bathroom behind my mom, she had never sat down next to me and I'm going, what's going on? Never. And she's taught me well, and I teach my baby girl well, and I know other women, plenty of other women, who take care of themselves. So, moving right along, guys, what it boils down to is having God to change your mind, your heart, your perception of the world, what's been downloaded in you, following his path. And he's going to lead you to who you need to be with. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things about the Lord, when you allow him to really get into your heart and to help you, he gets in your heart and your mind and he changes you from the inside out, you're going to have this peace. The word of God says he will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. And there's a peace that passes all understanding that's very real. And what it does, it keeps you where you don't feel anxious. He can keep you where you're not on fire. He can keep you where you're not horny. He can keep you where you're just not feeling like you have to be somewhere tonight. You got to go somewhere. You got to do something. He'll keep you in peace. He will give you wisdom. He will give you understanding. He will give you discernment. He will give you discretion. He will give you knowledge. These things are gems. So that you're not going to make mistakes. You're not going to just pick someone because of how they look. You're not going to choose someone just because of their finances. You're not going to choose someone because of what kind of body that they have. You're not going to choose a person just because they're on the same level educationally with you. Now, I truly believe that God will pair you perfectly with who you need to be with. I don't think necessarily that he'll let a doctor be with someone who is just nowhere close to her in education or vice versa, because I think if a woman's making that much more money than the man, this is my opinion, it could be a problem. It really could be. I could be wrong. Now, God is capable of doing anything, so that's just my opinion. But I think he will pair you perfectly with who is for you. But a lot of times people resist that. So you find all these people that look great on paper, but their character is shot. They're all flash and they have no substance. You find people being overlooked because of people just look at their circumstances and their background and think they're no good, but they have great substance and character. But at the same time, there are lots of people, whether they're high end, low end, whatever y'all will call low end, handsome or ugly, whatever y'all would consider to be ugly, character is shot all through and through. Because people are following what the world says is in and what's the norm. This is what you're supposed to do. This is how you're supposed to act. This is what you're supposed to say. This is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to sleep with this person. You're supposed to be drinking. This is how you're supposed to act. This is what you're supposed to wear. That's why people will just go. If a celebrity wears this outfit, they'll go wear it. I was looking at something. I was looking at this thing online. I was looking at these. No, it was a commercial. It was just, it's supposed to be this high-end brand. And I'm looking at these outfits and I'm like, this shirt is at Walmart. Or this shirt, I could get it at Target. Or you can literally go to the Goodwill and pick up that same thing and the whole outfit will come to $12. Like they were wearing these khaki pants with a plaid shirt with like a black and white striped shirt underneath. And I'm looking at that stuff like, that thing is somewhere 75% marked down at the Goodwill. Sometimes I feel like I really want to try to do this one day. Whenever I have time, I might. I'm going to just find a picture or something of something that's supposed to be really expensive and just go like to a consignment store or a Goodwill or somewhere, a Target, a Kmart, and be like, here's this exact shirt and pants. Because people follow what people say. This is what you're supposed to be wearing. This is what's in. This is what's acceptable. We're always doing that. It's time to jump off that conveyor belt and say, I am going to be me. I'm going to be who I want to be. Who says my hair has to be this way? Who says I have to dress this way? I mean, you don't want to go too far off. You don't want to be like, well, I'm going to be naked now. But I'm being facetious when I say that. But be okay being yourself. Because cultures and norms in society will say, this is how you're supposed to dress. This is what you're supposed to wear. This is how you're supposed to look. This is how you're supposed to act. This is the type of man you're supposed to have. This is how you choose a woman. This is what she's supposed to look like. This is how she's supposed to look on paper. This is what success spells. But the Bible says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are his ways higher and his thoughts higher than our own. So when you get to a place of letting the Lord deal with you, dig deep into the recesses of your heart, he's going to bring you full circle to yourself, cleanse you, change you. He'll give you the compassion, the heart to be able to see people for who they are, see them as souls, not as pawns, not as people to use. He will help you to respect that person when you're in a relationship with someone who's also being led by the Lord. Instead, even though you will have your disagreements, because we're still human, but the way you approach it the way you approach it and the way you see things will be quite different. You won't be quick to go run into the arms of another man, run into the arms of another woman, go have this thing where no one is talking to one another, being vindictive, not forgiving. You're not going to do those things. And believe me, the Lord can show you how, if someone does something that's wrong, you can definitely get the message across to them that you're not playing around through the words that God will give you to speak to them at that time. He may tell you where you need to kind of step away for a bit, how he'll have you do it. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be done in malice. It won't be done with, I'm going to let you pay for this and now you owe me, and this unhealthy thing that can happen between one another. You can value each other. You won't want to mark each other down on clearance by living together before marriage, because that's what it is. You've gone down about 85% off by doing that, okay? Because they're going to be getting the goodies and all that stuff. Or even if you're not, let's say you're living together and you're not doing anything, there will be nothing new about you to discover. They already know what you look like when you wake up. They already know what you eat. They already know all these things. Whereas there's so many things that God wants you to keep hidden into yourself for that time you get together in holy matrimony, discovering one another for the first time, learning one another for the first time, doing marriage together the right way, the real way. That's why people that's lived together for a long time, they'll say, well, what's the point of getting married? We're already doing it. Or they get married and it's like, oh, let's just put on some jeans and some flip-flops. Or you get married, but it's just not a big deal now, because it's like, okay, you got married, you went on vacation, and then you go home. All their clothes are already in the house. His juice is in the fridge already. Your waters are sitting there because you've already done this. So we already know how the movie ends. You know what I mean? What's the point in watching it? We know how this ends. You've been living together. So don't let the enemy rob you of these things. And as I said from the very beginning, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. It is not impossible for your mind to be changed. It's not impossible for your approach to dating and getting to know each other to change. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to yield to God, yield to his ways, if you're ready to take a look at yourself on the inside, if you're willing to deny your habits and impulses and follow his way, and he'll lead you. He's patient, he's gentle, and he'll show you the right way, and he'll change your mind. And so when you learn to enjoy yourself and to love yourself, then you're going to be a better person for someone else. When you can be by yourself and enjoy your company, you're not going to be thirsty and desperate for anyone else's company. And when you get together, you have things, you'll be like the Bible talks about, iron sharpens iron. You're going to be able to sharpen and strengthen one another. Not a person that's weak and needy and just super suck on and, oh, I need you, or just over the top to the point that if the person leaves, now you're dealing with a fatal attraction person, or you're being fatal attraction, or you're being over the top, your emotions are high, you're being, provoking one another, hurting one another, triangulating. You don't want to be in that. People often end up in that situation because they've lost sight of who they are, or they pour too much of themselves into someone else. When you have God in your life, you have that perfect balance. And too often people just blow God off. They think he does not exist, or he's just that ripcord you pull when you're in trouble, or people cry out to God when something horrible is about to happen. But if you do as I say, which is trust the Lord with all your heart, in all your ways acknowledge him, he will direct your path. And I'm trying to tell you that he will happily do that, gently help you to do that and change your mind. The world today, men and women today, singles today, is that they are seeking love on their terms. They are seeking companionship on their terms. They have their own definition for what love is and what it's not. They have their own guidelines and things that they're following, and it's leading them with failed relationship after failed relationship, or compromising themselves, being unhappy and staying, doing things, thinking they're going to have a baby that's going to keep the man, or being in a marriage where they're unhappy and they are miserable, they're unhappy and miserable, or there's someone else that they have on the side. All of that equates to what? Unhappiness and failure. So guys, I thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've come this far with me. And if you have comments, please do so below. If you want to reach out to me, you can go to the About link. You'll see my YouTube email. It may take me a while to get back to you, but I am certain that I will get back. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye.